A losing war changed course when the alien princess stepped forward. Ships streaked across the endless void, leaving trails of light like scars in the darkness of space. The human forces, small in number and resources, had been losing steadily, retreating from planet to planet, barely holding their ground. Morale was at its lowest, and whispers of surrender had begun to spread among the soldiers. Yet, in the midst of despair, there remained a single spark of hope. That spark was not a seasoned general, nor a brilliant strategist, but the young alien princess of Eloria, a planet now overrun by the enemy. Princess Leora had watched her people suffer, their homes destroyed and their lives upended. She had seen the human allies, few and weary, fighting alongside her people, their courage unbroken despite the losses. She understood something her elders often forgot. Hope could ignite change when strategy alone could not. Leora stood on the balcony of what remained of her palace, looking out over the devastated city. Buildings were reduced to rubble, the air filled with dust and smoke, and the streets were eerily quiet, save for the occasional distant hum of a patrol ship. Her heart ached for her people, but she also felt a determination rising from within. This war could be turned around, not through brute force, but through unity, ingenuity, and the courage to act when others hesitated. The humans had been kind to her, treating her not just as a princess, but as an ally and equal. Among them, one human stood out, Commander Elias, a man who had endured the harshest battles without losing his resolve. He often spoke to her, not in the formalities expected of royalty, but with sincerity and clarity. Through him, Leora had begun to understand the human perspective. Their strength lay not in weapons or numbers, but in their adaptability, their empathy, and their ability to inspire others. That morning, she convened a council with both human and alien leaders. The room, though partially destroyed, held an air of solemn importance. The council chamber had once been a symbol of Eloria's prosperity, with crystal walls that shimmered in the sunlight and intricate patterns that danced across the floor. Now the walls were cracked and the patterns were obscured by dust, but the significance of the gathering remained. Leora stepped forward as the council began to speak. Her presence alone commanded attention. Even among humans, her demeanor conveyed a sense of calm authority and quiet strength. "We have reached a critical point," she began, her voice steady yet warm. "Our cities fall, our resources dwindle, and our people are losing hope. But surrender is not the only option. There is still a way forward, a way to reclaim what is ours without becoming like our oppressors." The human general, a tall man with silver hair and eyes that reflected years of battle, raised an eyebrow. "You have seen the situation clearly, Princess. Do you truly believe there is a path to victory?" "I do," she replied firmly. "But it will require more than waiting for the enemy to tire. It will require strategy, creativity, and the courage to act decisively. We must use what the enemy does not expect: our unity, our willingness to adapt, and the resilience that comes from protecting what we love." A murmur went through the room. Many had grown cynical after months of loss. One of the alien advisors, a seasoned diplomat, leaned forward. "Your words are inspiring, Princess, but what practical steps do you propose? Our fleets are scattered, our supplies low. We cannot face them in open combat." Leora nodded. She had anticipated this skepticism. "Then we will not fight them the way they expect. We will use our knowledge of the terrain, our understanding of their movements, and the ingenuity of our people. We will protect the innocent and strike where it matters most. But this plan cannot succeed without the courage of every one of us, human and alien alike. Are you willing to stand with me?" For a moment, the room was silent. The tension was palpable, as if everyone were weighing the risks of hope against the familiarity of despair. Then, one by one, voices rose in agreement, not just out of loyalty to Leora, but because her vision had reminded them of something they had almost forgotten, that they were not merely pawns in a losing game, they were capable of shaping the outcome. Commander Elias stepped forward, placing a hand on the princess's shoulder. "You have our support, princess. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. Together, we will find a way." Her heart lifted at his words. Elia's unwavering confidence in humanity's potential mirrored the belief she had always held in her own people. In that moment, she felt the first true spark of hope since the war had begun. The next hours were spent planning. Leora and Elias worked side by side, poring over maps of the conquered territories, analyzing the enemy's movements, and identifying points of vulnerability. They devised strategies not based on overwhelming firepower, but on clever positioning, communication, and the element of surprise. Every idea was scrutinized, refined, and tested against every possible scenario. It was a process that demanded patience, creativity, and trust, and slowly their plan began to take shape. As the sun set over the broken city, Leora walked through the streets alone, observing the faces of her people. She saw fear, yes, but also resilience. Children played in the rubble, laughing despite the destruction around them. Merchants, though their shops were damaged, began to rebuild. Citizens helped one another, sharing food and water, offering comfort in small but meaningful ways. The alien princess realized that the greatest strength of her people and of humanity was not in weapons or technology, but in their spirit. That night, she returned to the council chamber to finalize the plan. The room was quiet, filled with the soft glow of lanterns. Leora looked around at the faces before her, humans and aliens alike, and felt a deep sense of responsibility. The coming days would be challenging, but she knew that together they could change the course of the war. In the hours before dawn, Leora stood once more on the balcony, gazing at the stars. She imagined the fleets of both her people and the humans working in harmony, outmaneuvering the enemy, protecting the innocent, and reclaiming lost territories. The task was daunting, but she felt a quiet determination settle within her. This war had tested them all, but it had not broken them. With the first light of morning, she made her decision. She would step forward, not as a princess seeking to be protected, but as a leader determined to inspire. The human forces would follow, the alien forces would follow, and together they would show that even in the darkest times, courage, ingenuity, and unity could turn the tide. And so, Princess Leora prepared to lead. She did not know what challenges awaited, nor the trials she and her allies would face. But she knew this. A losing war could be changed by those willing to act, and by the spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. As the city stirred to life around her, she felt a new sense of purpose. Today, the war would not be won by fear or despair. It would be won by those willing to rise, to unite, and to fight not with hatred but with determination and hope. And Princess Leora was ready to take that first step. The morning air was crisp and clear, a rare gift in the midst of so much chaos. Princess Leora stood on the balcony of the partially restored palace, observing the city slowly waking from its uneasy slumber. The streets were beginning to fill with activity, traders cautiously opening makeshift stalls, children running along rubble-strewn avenues, and citizens gathering in small groups to help one another repair damaged homes. Despite the lingering shadows of defeat, Leora felt an unmistakable energy in the city. Hope was not something she could command, but it was something she could inspire, and she realized it was beginning to bloom. Today was the day to put her plans into action. She had spent the previous night reviewing every map, consulting with human strategists, and coordinating with alien commanders. Every detail mattered: movement of troops, supply routes, communication channels. But beyond strategy, she focused on morale. A plan could fail if the people carrying it out did not believe in it. Commander Elias was the first to arrive. He was already examining a holographic projection of the surrounding territories, his fingers moving deftly over the controls. "Princess," he said without looking up, I've reviewed the supply chains and patrol routes. We can establish secure corridors for the civilians and redistribute resources more efficiently. If we act quickly, we can stabilize the situation before the enemy anticipates our moves. Leora stepped beside him, studying the projection. Lines of light traced possible paths across planets, linking cities, space stations, and remote settlements. "Good," she said. "We don't need to fight to win. We need to show our people and the enemy that we can protect ourselves, that we are resilient and capable of outthinking them." Elias looked at her, a faint smile forming. "That is exactly what humans do. We don't always have the biggest fleets, but we have creativity, adaptability, and perseverance. And from what I've seen, you have all of those qualities, Princess." Her cheeks flushed slightly at the compliment. "I only hope I can live up to them," she replied. "We have a lot to do today." The first step of their plan was simple yet ambitious: secure the main city and ensure that civilians had access to food, clean water, and safe shelters. Leora had divided the city into zones, each overseen by both a human and an alien leader. Teams of volunteers moved through the streets, repairing bridges, clearing debris, and distributing supplies. Princess Leora walked among them, offering encouragement and guidance. Her presence alone lifted spirits. People who had felt helpless began to feel capable, taking small but meaningful actions to improve their surroundings. In one alley, a group of children gathered around a makeshift school. Their teacher, a young alien scholar, had set up a whiteboard and was teaching lessons about their history and culture. Leora paused to listen, impressed by the determination of the teacher. The children's laughter and curiosity reminded her that even in times of war, life could persist and hope could flourish. She knelt beside them for a moment. "Remember," she said softly, "knowledge is power. Learning and understanding will help you build a better future." The children beamed at her, their eyes wide with admiration, and returned eagerly to their lessons. Meanwhile, in the command center, Elias coordinated with his human engineers to establish communication networks that would link all sectors of the city. This allowed leaders in each zone to share updates, report problems, and request assistance. Leora watched as messages flowed through the system, feeling a sense of satisfaction. The city was becoming a living, breathing organism, working together for a common purpose. By mid-morning, reports began to arrive from the outskirts of the city. Alien villages that had been isolated were sending messages of relief. Civilians were being evacuated from dangerous areas and relocated to safer zones. The combined human and alien teams had moved swiftly, preventing panic and chaos. Leora realized that the act of protecting her people was as powerful as any offensive strategy could have been. Demonstrating care, competence, and leadership inspired loyalty and courage. It was during this flurry of activity that the first test of their strategy arrived, not in the form of a violent attack, but as a challenge of wit and collaboration. A neighboring city had been cut off due to damaged transport routes. Supplies were running low, and the local leaders were unsure how to manage the situation. Leora and Elias immediately convened a team to address it. "We can reroute supplies from the northern sector," Elias suggested, "but it will require careful coordination and the cooperation of the local citizens." Leora nodded. "Then we will ask for their help. People rise to challenges when they feel valued. They will understand that their actions matter, and that together we can overcome any obstacle." She sent messengers to the northern sector, and soon, citizens there were gathering supplies, loading them onto transports, and preparing to distribute them to the neighboring city. Volunteers worked side by side with alien and human leaders, their differences forgotten in the pursuit of a shared goal. Leora watched the operation unfold, her heart swelling with pride. The human philosophy of ingenuity and problem-solving had blended seamlessly with the alien emphasis on community and empathy. Together, They were achieving what neither could have accomplished alone. As the day progressed, Leora moved to the city's central plaza, where a large gathering had formed. People were curious, anxious, and hopeful all at once. She stepped onto a raised platform, her figure silhouetted against the setting sun. "Citizens of Eloria," she began, her voice carrying across the square. "Today we have faced challenges not with fear but with action. We have shown that our strength lies not in weapons alone, but in our unity, our creativity, and our determination to care for one another. Each of you has played a role in securing our future, and together we will continue to rise." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Children waved, merchants nodded, and even the weary soldiers smiled. Leora felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The act of leading, of showing confidence and compassion, had done more to rally the people than any battle could have. As night fell, Leora and Elias reviewed the progress of the day. Reports from the field indicated that civilian morale had improved, supply lines were functioning, and coordination between sectors was stronger than ever. The city was no longer merely surviving, it was thriving despite the circumstances. "Princess," Elias said, "what we accomplished today is remarkable. The enemy may think they can overwhelm us, but they cannot match the spirit of people who believe in themselves and each other." Leora nodded. "And tomorrow we will take the next step. We will show that even in a losing war, ingenuity and compassion can create victories that cannot be measured by weapons alone. Our people are capable of greatness, and they are beginning to see it in themselves." She retired to her quarters later that night, reflecting on the day's successes. It was exhausting work, yet invigorating. The city had responded to her leadership, and she had seen firsthand how humans could inspire and organize under pressure. It reminded her that leadership was not about issuing commands. It was about empowering others, recognizing their strengths, and helping them believe in what they could achieve together. As she gazed out the window at the twinkling stars, she considered the path ahead. There would be obstacles, moments of doubt, and challenges that tested their resolve. But she knew that the true measure of strength was not in avoiding hardship, but in meeting it with courage, creativity, and unity. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Elias entered, carrying a tablet with new reports. "Princess," he said, "we've received word from the northern colonies. They are ready to support us in the next phase of our plan. Their willingness to cooperate shows that our message of unity is spreading beyond this city." Leora smiled. "Then we continue. Tomorrow we build on today's success. We show that a war can be changed not through destruction but through hope, ingenuity, and collaboration." Elias nodded, sharing her determination. Together, they reviewed the strategy for the coming days, focusing on initiatives that strengthened communities, enhanced communication, and showcased the resilience of both humans and aliens. Each decision was carefully considered, each plan a step toward a larger vision. As the night deepened, Leora finally rested, confident that she had taken the first steps to shift the course of the war. The enemy might be strong, but her people were stronger in ways that could not be measured by weapons alone. Unity, courage, and the human spirit, the ability to adapt, create, and inspire, were forces the enemy had underestimated. Princess Leora had stepped forward, not as a figure to be protected, but as a leader to be followed. And already, the war was beginning to change. The morning sun rose slowly over the city, casting golden light on streets that had once been silent and broken. Princess Leora stood on the balcony again, taking in the transformation. The city was no longer merely surviving. It was alive. Markets buzzed with activity, children played in the parks that had been cleared of debris, and the citizens moved with purpose. The human and alien teams had established systems that allowed the city to function like a single organism, each part supporting the others. Leora felt a quiet satisfaction, but she knew the challenges were far from over. The enemy had not retreated. They were still a looming presence on the edges of the system. What she had done so far was only the first phase of a larger plan, one that required not just rebuilding, but inspiring hope across other cities and planets as well. If she could show that her approach worked here, it might spark a movement that would ripple outward, giving courage to those who had been defeated elsewhere. Commander Elias arrived, as he always did early in the day. He carried reports from other cities and colonies, each one showing small but encouraging progress. "Princess," he said, handing her the first tablet, "the neighboring settlements are already responding. Your leadership is giving them confidence. They see that recovery is possible and that cooperation works better than fear." Leora studied the tablet. Maps of the region displayed colored zones, representing areas of stability and progress. The northern colonies, previously cut off and struggling, were now sending messages of support, offering volunteers and sharing resources. "This is what we needed," she said softly. "Not just to rebuild one city, but to create a network of support. If each settlement helps the next, our efforts will grow exponentially." They began planning the day's activities. The first priority was education. Leora believed knowledge was as important as food, shelter, or security. Schools, workshops, and community centers were being reopened across the city. Alien children and human children studied together, sharing lessons in math, science, culture, and history. Leora walked through one classroom, observing a teacher demonstrating simple engineering concepts using scraps of machinery. The children's eyes lit up with understanding and curiosity. "This is amazing," Leora whispered to Elias. "They're learning to solve problems, not just follow instructions. That kind of thinking will stay with them long after this war is over." Elias nodded. "Exactly. Humans have always believed that knowledge empowers, and now it's helping to empower your people too. This is the real change, the one that lasts." After visiting the schools, Leora turned her attention to the city's infrastructure. Engineers, both human and alien, were collaborating to repair bridges, clear roads, and restore energy networks. Leora joined them, offering suggestions, asking questions, and listening carefully to their ideas. Her presence encouraged them, reminding them that leadership was not only about giving orders, but also about participating and valuing the input of others. By mid-morning, a message arrived from a distant colony. They had been isolated for months, struggling to survive. The message expressed gratitude and eagerness to join the network Leora and Elias had begun building. She quickly convened a meeting with both human and alien coordinators. "We will help them integrate supplies, establish communication links, and train volunteers," she said. "And we will make sure they understand they are not alone. Each of us strengthens the other." Elias smiled. "Princess, the way you speak, people can feel it. They know we're all working together. That's more powerful than any fleet or weapon." In the afternoon, Leora visited the city's central plaza, where volunteers were organizing a community project. The idea was simple: turn a devastated park into a thriving garden. Citizens of all ages were planting trees, flowers, and vegetables. Humans taught alien children gardening techniques, while alien adults shared knowledge of native plants and ecosystems. Leora knelt beside a small child, helping plant a sapling. "This tree will grow tall," she said softly, "and so will your city, and so will your people. All of you have the power to make something beautiful even after hardship." The child smiled, dirt on their cheeks and determination in their eyes. Around them, others worked together, laughing, exchanging ideas, and taking pride in their shared accomplishments. Leora realized this was exactly what she wanted: people who could see their potential, who could act to improve their world, and who could inspire others to do the same. By late afternoon, reports arrived that some neighboring cities were starting to emulate Leora's approach. Citizens organized themselves into volunteer teams, schools reopened, and local leaders coordinated with their communities to share resources efficiently. Word spread that even without battles, significant progress could be made, and morale across the region began to improve. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm orange glow across the city, Leora gathered her human and alien advisors. They reviewed the day's accomplishments and discussed the next steps. "The network is expanding faster than we expected," Leora said. "People are responding to hope and leadership, not fear. That is a force our enemies cannot measure." One of the alien leaders, a scholar who had once doubted Leora's methods, nodded slowly. "I admit, Princess, I was skeptical. But seeing how your guidance is mobilizing communities, I see now that strategy is not just about tactics. It's about inspiration, and you are proving it works." Elias added, "Humans have always believed that leadership is about more than orders. It's about trust and action. And you're showing both. You're teaching them to believe in themselves, and that is the strongest foundation of all." The evening was spent planning the next phase, connecting more distant colonies, and ensuring that resources and knowledge could flow freely between them. Leora and Elias worked late into the night, coordinating efforts, sending messages, and refining strategies. They emphasized creativity, problem-solving, and mutual support, ensuring that each community could adapt and contribute independently while remaining part of the greater network. Finally, Leora stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air. The city was quiet now, but alive. Lights glimmered from homes and street lamps, and she could hear distant laughter from children still playing. She reflected on how far they had come in just a few days. What had once been a city on the brink of despair was now a hub of hope, collaboration, and learning. Elias joined her, leaning on the balcony railing. "You've done something incredible, Princess. You've turned fear into hope and despair into action. People are beginning to believe in the future again." Leora smiled, feeling a sense of calm purpose. "It's not just me, Elias. It's the people themselves. They are finding their strength and choosing to act. Our role is to guide them, to show them that their efforts matter. If they can see the value in themselves, the network will continue to grow on its own." Elias nodded thoughtfully. "That's what makes humans strong too. We create, adapt, and inspire others to act. Your leadership is a perfect example of what can happen when humans and aliens work together." The two of them gazed at the stars above, thinking not of the enemy but of the potential that lay ahead. This war had seemed unwinnable, a series of losses too great to overcome. Yet now, through leadership, hope, and collaboration, they were beginning to rewrite the story. Leora knew that challenges would come. There would be obstacles that tested patience, resources that seemed insufficient, and moments when fear might creep back in. But she had seen what humans and her people could achieve when they acted with creativity, compassion, and determination. That knowledge gave her confidence that the next phase of their plan would succeed. Before retiring for the night, she addressed the citizens over the city's communication network. "People of Eloria and beyond," she said, her voice steady and warm. "Today we have shown that even when the odds are against us, unity, ingenuity, and courage can make a difference. Every small action contributes to our greater goal. Together, we can overcome challenges, rebuild our homes, and inspire others to do the same. The path is not easy, but the journey is worthwhile. Believe in yourselves as I believe in you." The responses came quickly. Messages of gratitude, encouragement, and excitement poured in from citizens and leaders across the region. The network of communities had begun to thrive, and people were eager to continue the work. Leora felt a sense of pride, not just in herself, but in everyone who had chosen to act, to care, and to collaborate. As she lay down that night, Leora thought about the path ahead. The enemy might still dominate parts of the galaxy, but she knew their greatest strength, hope, creativity, and unity, could not be conquered. She had witnessed the power of inspired communities, and she believed that the movement they had started would spread. showing that even in a losing war, transformation was possible. Her final thought before sleep took her was simple but profound. A single leader could inspire action, but it was the courage and creativity of ordinary people that would ultimately change the course of history. And Princess Leora knew that she had only just begun. The sun rose over the city once more, casting long shadows that intertwined with the renewed streets, markets, and homes. Princess Leora stood on the balcony, taking in the view of what her people had accomplished in just a few days. The city no longer looked like a place on the brink of despair. Instead, it radiated energy and determination. Every street, every building, every garden reflected the combined efforts of humans and aliens working together. Leora knew this was only the beginning. The network of cities and colonies they had created was expanding, and the principles she had introduced, hope, ingenuity, and collaboration, were spreading faster than she could have imagined. Reports had arrived from distant planets. People were organizing themselves, sharing resources, and teaching one another skills that would strengthen their communities. Small victories, but each one created ripples that would grow larger with time. Commander Elias approached, holding a tablet that glowed with news from multiple settlements. "Princess," he said, a note of excitement in his voice, "the movement has reached 3 more planets. Citizens are creating community centers, sharing knowledge, and establishing their own local networks. They are beginning to lead themselves, inspired by what we started here." Leora smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of hope. That is exactly what we needed. Leadership is not about controlling others. It's about showing them the possibilities and empowering them to act. When people see what they can achieve, they will rise to the challenge. The day's work began with another visit to the city's schools. Leora watched as children collaborated on science projects, creating models of renewable energy systems, water purification devices, and small transport solutions. Humans and aliens worked side by side, exchanging ideas and teaching each other new methods. Leora knelt beside a young human student who was experimenting with a solar-powered water pump. "This is incredible," she said. "You are creating solutions that will help not just this city but many others. Remember, even small actions can lead to big changes." The child looked up, eyes shining. "We want to help, Princess. We can make our home better and help others too." Leora felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was exactly what she had envisioned, communities that were not just surviving, but thriving, learning, and inspiring one another. Next, she visited the community gardens and workshops that had become symbols of collaboration. People were building new tools, planting more crops, and setting up training sessions to teach skills to neighbors. Humans demonstrated engineering techniques, while aliens shared knowledge about native plants, ecosystems, and sustainable practices. Leora walked among them, offering encouragement, listening to ideas, and ensuring that everyone understood their contributions mattered. By midday, Leora convened a council with both human and alien leaders from surrounding cities and colonies. Holographic maps displayed the network of communities that had formed. She pointed to lines connecting planets and cities. "Look at this," she said, her voice strong and calm. "This is the result of hope, creativity, and collaboration. Each community is connected, each one helping the other. This is the strength that the enemy cannot measure or control." One of the alien leaders spoke up, a wise elder who had initially doubted Leora's methods. "Princess, we have seen what you have accomplished. People are no longer waiting for orders. They are taking initiative, helping one another, and thinking creatively. This is unprecedented. I never imagined it possible in such a short time." Leora nodded. "It is possible because we showed them what could be done and empowered them to act. Leadership is not about doing everything ourselves. It is about inspiring others to see their own power." Elias added, Humans have always believed that even in the most difficult circumstances, creativity, empathy, and determination can overcome challenges. You have shown the same for your people, and together, we are proving it on a grand scale. In the afternoon, a message arrived from a distant sector. A colony had been struggling with isolation, and their resources were dwindling. But instead of fear or panic, their message spoke of determination and initiative. They had organized themselves, shared knowledge, and established communication with nearby settlements. They requested guidance, but the tone of the message was confident. They had already begun to act. Leora felt a surge of pride. This was exactly what she had hoped for. Communities were no longer waiting for a single leader to solve their problems. They were becoming leaders themselves, empowered by example and by the network of support that had been created. The evening brought another gathering in the central plaza. Thousands of citizens from various cities and colonies had come together, drawn by the message of hope and collaboration. Leora stepped onto the raised platform, the crowd falling silent as they waited for her words. "People of Eloria and beyond," she began, her voice steady and warm, "we have witnessed something remarkable. We have turned fear into courage, despair into action, and isolation into connection. Today, communities across our network are thriving, sharing knowledge and supporting one another. We have proven that a war does not have to be won through destruction, but through unity, creativity, and determination." The crowd erupted in cheers. Children waved, elders smiled, and volunteers nodded proudly. Leora felt the energy of the people around her, a living force of hope and inspiration. She continued, "This is only the beginning. Each of you has the power to make a difference, not just for yourselves, but for your neighbors, your cities, and even the distant colonies. We are connected, and together we are unstoppable." Elias stood beside her, nodding in agreement. "Princess, this is incredible. People are seeing the power within themselves and choosing to act. That is the kind of strength that no enemy can take away." Leora smiled. "Yes, and that strength will continue to grow. Each small victory inspires the next. Every act of creativity, every gesture of cooperation, every effort to help another person contributes to a future that is stronger, brighter, and more resilient." The sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Leora and Elias walked through the plaza, observing citizens sharing ideas, teaching each other new skills, and celebrating their accomplishments. It was a scene that reminded them both that true strength was not measured in power or weapons, but in the courage to act, the determination to improve, and the ability to inspire others. Later, Leora convened a final strategy session with her closest advisors. They reviewed the expansion of the network, the progress of distant colonies, and the methods by which communities could continue to thrive independently. Leora emphasized leadership, education, and collaboration as the guiding principles. "We have accomplished so much already," she said, "but the real achievement is not in what we have done, but in what the people will continue to do. They have seen what is possible, and they will carry this forward. Our goal is not to fight the enemy directly, but to show that strength lies in unity, creativity, and hope." The advisors nodded in agreement. They understood that Leora's vision was not only about survival, it was about transformation. By empowering her people and working alongside humans, she had created a movement that could not be easily defeated. As night fell, Leora stood on the balcony one last time, gazing at the stars above. She thought of the distant colonies, the thriving cities, and the growing network of communities. The war had changed course, not because of battles won or enemies defeated, but because people had chosen to rise above fear and despair. They had embraced hope, ingenuity, and cooperation. Elias joined her, leaning against the railing. "Princess, we've done it. The tide is turning, not because of force, but because of people believing in themselves and in each other." Leora nodded, a sense of calm determination settling over her. Yes, Elias, this is only the beginning, but it proves that even in the darkest times, courage, creativity, and unity can create miracles. People are stronger than any challenge, and together, they can achieve what was once thought impossible. The night deepened, but the city remained alive with activity. Volunteers continued their work, children studied and played, and leaders communicated across vast distances to ensure the network's continued success. The war, which had once seemed lost, had taken a new direction, one defined not by conflict, but by collaboration and hope. Princess Leora finally retired, confident that she had taken the final steps to solidify this transformation. She had inspired, guided, and empowered her people, showing them that the greatest victories come from unity, creativity, and courage. And as she drifted into sleep, she knew that the future was bright, not because the enemy had been destroyed, but because her people had discovered their own strength. The next morning would bring new challenges, but Leora was ready. She had witnessed the power of inspired communities, the ingenuity of humans, and the resilience of her people. Together, they had changed the course of a losing war, proving that hope and action could overcome despair. And so, Princess Leora's leadership became a beacon across the galaxy, a reminder that even when odds seem impossible, courage, collaboration, and creativity can ignite transformation, and ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. The war was no longer a story of loss. It had become a story of hope, ingenuity, and the unstoppable power of humans and aliens working together. A losing war changed course when the alien princess stepped forward.